Okay, folks, if you'd like to take your seats, we're going to resume our program. Again, welcome to WhaleFest Monterey. This is the symposium for April 14th. Many thanks to the organizers of this event and to our many sponsors. My name is Dan Hafley. I'm your MC for today, and I'm with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, one of many sponsors of today's event. So our final speaker before lunch, last but not least, is Peggy Stap of Marine Life Studies and the Whale Entanglement team. And her presentation is Whale Entanglement, Risks, Responses, and Prevention. Peggy Stap's a Michigan native. She saw her first whales on a whale watch in Maui, Hawaii, which was a life-changing experience. In 2006, she founded Marine Life Studies, dedicated to research, education, and whale rescue in Moss Landing, California. Peggy's a volunteer and has served as executive director ever since the founding of the organization. She's also co-founder of the Whale Entanglement team and is co-investigator and level 3 responder under the NOAA permit for whale rescue and principal investigator under a NOAA Endangered Species Act permit to conduct research on whales and dolphins in Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. I'd like you to welcome Peggy Stap.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Dan. What a great introduction. I really appreciate it. Oh, yeah, I'm short. We have a short team, don't we, Steph? Stephanie Marcos, our operations manager, is back there. Anyway, yeah. I'm supposed to point when to start the next slide. So anyway, yeah, I started in Marine Life Studies in 2006, and I did, being in Maui changed my whole life, seeing a humpback whale. It was amazing. This video that's showing while I'm talking just gives you a flavor of all the other things that we do besides whale disentanglement. It really wasn't even our mission to begin with. So, but our first year we had a fundraising garage sale. We got a call. Because I worked with a research team in Maui, we were part of the Entanglement Network, and there was nothing here. So that started our quest to get a team, because there was nothing north of Orange County at the time. So we've done a lot in that time. We started out with a 19-foot Donzi. Now we have a 40-foot vessel that we call our whale disentanglement ambulance, because we have everything on there for a complete disentanglement. So if we're offshore, we might be missing crew, but we have other partners that'll bring our crew out. And we've just done some other, I'm running out of room on this. I have to have a longer slide of all the things. We just did some more improvements on the boat. So we're always doing more and improving at all times. And we've been a partner with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So that was nice that they did a testimony about us, which was really appreciated. And over the years, because we've been around since 2006, we've done so many things and worked with so many of the local people. And I moved some up to the top because this year the Nature Conservancy developed a new telemetry buoy, and we've been doing the testing, but we thought there needed some other testing that we couldn't provide, so I put them in touch with Mbara, because they've been a great partner of ours for over the years. We really appreciate that they're in our neighborhood. And so they did. They just got done doing some tests, so next year I'll talk more about that. But anyway, and we couldn't do it without the whale watch and fishing community. It's a network. We're not out by ourselves. It's the whole community. Our donors are really the most important part, because without them on our team, we would not be able to do the work that we do. So we appreciate everyone in our network. So I'm going to talk about something, I've always thought this behavior called kelping, and it's gotten a lot more notice the last year or so because there was a paper that was written in Australia about kelping. But we've been observing that since we started, really. I think the first time was 2007 or 2008. And so this is not line around a humpback whale, this is kelp. So we watched this whale for 2 hours play with kelp. It wrapped it around its head. See, that looks like it's line. Every time we have this on our booth too. People see that, they think it's line. It's not, it's kelp. But because it's kelp, they can break it. They cannot break the line that they're entangled in because a lot of it's like blue steel line or poly line, so it's impossible for them to break. And this is what happened. See, down below on what's your left, it's embedded across the rostrum. You can see where the blowhole is, so that's forward of that. And this is one that was so entangled, it was starving to death, and that's what happens. And that's a very slow and painful death to go. I don't even like to be hungry at all. Can't imagine this poor thing. So besides being fun, I think it'd be fun playing around in the kelp. It's smooth and slimy and, I mean, if you're a whale, not that I want to be out there. But anyway, they engage in this for many reasons. And so the whales and dolphins do this. So part of it is that they, it helps them maintain their skin from parasites and barnacles, and there's a lot of medicinal properties of kelp. Even humans use kelp for a lot of different things, face masks and things like that. So, and that's part of their watery world. So that's one thing they do. They like to play with things in their watery world, dolphins and whales. I did a research project in the Bahamas, and it was spotted dolphin, and there was a plastic bag in the water, and the dolphin had it on its peck. Then it dropped it to the fluke, and then it dropped it, and the next dolphin picked it up. So these are things in their world. They're very curious, and they're very smart. So anyway, oops, not quite doing this well with the mic. They'll even bite down on the kelp, which is really interesting because they're baleen. They have baleen, not teeth, so they're filter feeders. So that's not a normal function of their mouth is biting, but they will bite the kelp and pull it underwater and then let go of it. It might help scrub their teeth and maybe even clean their baleen. So you can see here that's got kelp all over its pec fin, on its rostrum. These are 2 humpback whales. And then even the dolphins get into it with the kelp up in front of its dorsal fin. So they have a lot of fun. So I recently, when I got my pedicure, it said whale spa. And so I had to include this in here. Because it is like their own spa out there. So, but it does have a function and a lot of different things reasons why they do it, but this is one of the reasons I think they get entangled as well. Well, anyway, I can describe what you're going to see. There's actually a killer whale that was with a group of killer whales that had just attacked and killed a gray whale calf, and we were observing that. And there was a lot of crab pot buoys in the area, and this male killer whale swam right to that and got it caught on its dorsal fin, around its fluke. It came up and down a few times and still had it on there. And we were just about ready to move in to start doing assessment, and it threw the gear. And oftentimes they will throw the gear on their own. So anyway, we were very thankful for that. But these animals were not so lucky. This one up here is from Fort Bragg. It was entangled. This one's still out at sea. That was off of Oregon. And then what's the most disturbing part of this is there were some killer whales, southern resident killer whales that died in entanglements, and they're so highly endangered they can't afford to lose any of their family members. So it's really a tragedy. So we're working on things to mitigate that. This is an overview of the whale entanglement team.
Reports of entangled whales have significantly increased off the coast of California.
There's sound.
As you can see, they are pretty devastating. These gentle giants are suffering from life.
There's sound on this.
These entanglements can lead to a slow and painful death, as seen in these photos with the line wrapped around.
I don't hear my voice. Do you hear it out there?
Sneers on as the whale gazes at us. But there's hope. Working under a special federal permit with the Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response.
Yeah, we work under a special permit to disentangle. We only use small boats. We never get in the water with the whales ever.
As it is too dangerous for the whale and the rescue.
And we use special tools to disentangle the whales. And this was a whale that we used 2 different boats in order to disentangle it.
Plays a pivotal role in saving these
This is part deal.
Did you free it?
Yeah.
Woo! That's me. I was on the science boat, and my friends that saw this, because it was on Big Blue Live, they called me and go, "That was you, wasn't it?" They recognized my voice. But again, the whale entanglement team is just a Band-Aid on the problem, so we're always looking for ways to mitigate, and even the fisheries are trying to do the same thing. The Crab Fishing Association in California has really worked on reducing, like, the line going from the pot on the seafloor to the main buoy, and then the main buoy to the trailer buoy. And they use that trailer buoy to pull up their gear. By shortening that, they have eliminated some of the entanglements, which is really good. And they're really good sea stewards. You know, they don't want to see the whales entangled any more than anyone else does. So they've been very proactive. They're one of the few proactive fisheries in doing this. But when we were at the Marine Mammal Conference, I think it was in 17 or 18, I can't remember the year now, I met this guy, Rich Reels, and he had an innovative idea by using these dive bags, only they're specially designed to pick up more weight. And at the time, he only had, I think they could lift 65 pounds, and I talked to him, I said, you know, the crab pots are like 140 to 150. Now they have them that they can pick up the big ones, you know, like up in Alaska that you see. And so that's one of the new gears. So that's one way we can mitigate, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. The other thing is, you know, we wanted to pick up the derelict gear because there's a lot of derelict gear under this water. And that's where there's fishing gear, but there's no buoy at the surface, so it's either in the water column or on the sea floor. And we had a whale that got entangled in that. It was derelict gear. So we put together this project. It was our pilot program, and it worked really well. And we used an edge tech scanner to scan the sea floor. We could locate those pots and lines, and then we hired the fishermen to pull them for us. So we worked with a gentleman in Monterey, Giovanni Novelloso, and also Calder Direly up in Moss Landing. And they were great, and I learned so much from them. And it's interesting, they're both commercial fishermen, but 2/3 of the gear that we brought up was recreational gear. And anyone and their brother can go to Costco or any store that sells permits and crab pots, but their crab pots are a lot lighter, anywhere from 5 to 25 pounds. Commercial crab pots are 140, 150 pounds. These smaller pots are more likely to get pushed off the shelf edge. So it is a big problem. There's a lot of commercial out there too. There's a lot of gear. And we've tried to wrote a big grant so we could try some of our new innovative things that we thought and learned from our pilot program. One is, I thought there's got to be a more efficient way, because we were doing throwing a grapple down. We knew where the pot and line was. We'd throw a grapple down, do concentric circles or figure eights, and then pull it up. But oftentimes we'd be doing that for an hour and a half and get nothing. I thought there's got to be a better way. So I talked to our partners at Ambari, and they helped us with a solution. And this is a video. Hopefully this one plays. And if they can put the sound up, because I'm talking in it, but you guys aren't hearing the sound.
They propose scenarios of different means to safely remove the pots from the seafloor. The procedures discussed were developed at MBARI to recover a disabled AUV, also known as autonomous underwater vehicle, or other oceanographic scientific hardware. So MBARI's strong research and development for ocean science paid us an unexpected dividend. We needed to test this proof of concept, and MBARI lent a hand to help prove the concept while practicing an emergency equipment recovery maneuver. We are grateful to the staff at MBARI for their contribution, and now we have incorporated what we learned during the proof of concept test that will be beneficial and prove the efficiency of our procedures to remove this gear from the seafloor in the future.
And we continue to write grants so that we can get the money to do this procedure that we MBARI helped us develop, so that's really great. And then the other thing is this innovative gear. I touched on it about with Rich Rios and that bag, but there's many other companies now since that time that have different innovative gear. And we were in dry dock last spring, and so I know a lot of the fishermen, and I'd be walking through the boat works, and I'd talk to them, and my husband, he hates it when I say this, but one day he goes, you know, you're a nonprofit, why don't you just write a grant and buy the gear for them? And I go, that's a brilliant idea. So I was, why not? So because the fishermen aren't going to be able to afford it, and we want to do something to help the whales, and this is a perfect plan, I thought. And so I talked to the different fishermen, and some were pretty good about it. Some were like, well, if it takes us a little longer to pull up the lines, you know, and he was kind of poo-pooing it, and I looked at him, I said, I know, but if it even took you a little longer to pull up the line, and you could fish your entire season, not be start late, end early, wouldn't that be better? And he just looked at me and went, oh, he hadn't really thought about that. You know, so it's educating the fishermen on this innovative gear. And then, so this is Greg Wells with the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, because I contacted Michaela, and she put me in touch with Greg, and I said, you know, we have fishermen, they want to test, and they have all the gear. So we went up to Half Moon Bay, and this is one of our fishermen up there that does crabbing and spot prawn, but he ended up testing it. I talked to Calder Dyerly and some others, and it was really hard to find fishermen that wanted to test it, because there was someone that did test it on the West Coast. And Calder had told me this, that he got death threats from other fishermen. His wife got death threats. And when I was talking to Calder, he says, you might get death threats. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't yet, so hopefully not. But anyway, so this guy tested it with his spot prawn permit I think in November, December, and then the beginning of this year. So that's what we need as fishermen. But the National Sanctuary Foundation just got a huge grant from the Ocean Protection Council, and part of the money is getting more equipment for fishermen to test, because there is a waiting line of fishermen now, which is really good. You could hardly get them to test before, but it is the wave of the future, and it's a way they can fish, and the whales won't become entangled, you know, to mitigate that. But we'll still be needed as the whale entanglement team, because there's so much derelict gear and other things from boats for eons. There's so much stuff out in the ocean that they could get caught in. So we'll still be ready to respond for entanglements, but we've got to do something different. But it'll probably take 3 years for this testing before the state will approve it. So that's why I was so excited, because this was just about a month ago. And they also got like $200,000 to buy fishermen, and it's just for the crab fisheries. So I'm hoping that more money will come for other fisheries, for line that they're going to supply the fishermen that's marked, because the problem is the crabbers get targeted for entanglements, but 2/3 of the entanglements we have no clue what fisheries they're even from, you know. So, but because their lines and buoys are so recognizable. That's why they get targeted, which is really a shame because they're really good environmental stewards. And like I said, they don't want the whales entangled more than anyone else. But this is some of the gear, and here's some more. These are smart buoy that will be released and come to the top and send a signal so they know when the, that they'll have a line to pull their pots up from, because they're not magically going to rise up unless they use the smelt ones, which they're using on the East Coast. But they haven't tested those yet on the West Coast. So now I'm going to talk about a case study, but part of the problem is where the fish are for the fishermen and the crabbers and the spot prawners is the same area where the whales are feeding. So it's just, the crossover of the two makes it very difficult for, the fishermen and the whales. And this was, I don't know if you recognize, that's the mile marker out of Moss Landing. And I love this picture. That guy's just lined with a hook and a line, fishing these two humpbacks at a vertical lunge feed. And it just, I always use this photo, so I love this one. And look how extended their pleats are. So now they're going to squeeze the water out and swallow the fish that they just got. And there was so much bait fish there. So I'm going to go into, what happens. So we get a call. We have a hotline you can call if you see an entangled whale, or you can call the Coast Guard. And for us here, a lot of people know us, they'll call our phone directly. So once we get the call, then we mobilize our team. So what the first step is the most crucial, because every whale entanglement is different. We just don't buzz in there and start cutting away because we don't want to cut a line, one that we might need to work our way up to the whale, and we need to really see where the entanglement is, because that will determine our action plan. So, you see that it's around the peduncle. This one was actually entangled around a sea dip buoy out about 50 miles west of Point Pinos. That one's wrapped around its peck. This one's over its body, and that one's through the mouth. And here's some others. So you have some draped over. You can't even see where the line is, but you see the buoys next to the body. This one, we never saw this one again. We never saw it, actually. We looked for it. It was in southern Cal and went all the way north. And then that's another whale down there that you can see where the line goes under the body. So it's going under the body, either through the mouth on the other side or on the left peck. So, and the reason it's so important, because what you see at the surface doesn't mean what's under the surface. And I love this. This Center for Coastal Studies on the East Coast put this together. So they gave it to us to use. So you could have cut that line on the top thinking, oh, you freed the whale, which actually happened in Morro Bay by eel fishermen. They jumped on the whale and cut the line, but that didn't disentangle him. But you can see how complicated it is. That's why assessment is crucial. So like if you're out, even from land or on a boat, and you see an entangled whale, these are some of the photos that you really want to take. They're very important to us. The dorsal fins, because oftentimes you never see the fluke. Any of the lines that you might see anywhere on the body. And there's a fluke. Sometimes you'll see line wrapped around that fluke. But these are all important photos to take. But like I said, oftentimes we never see the fluke because it might be weighted down from a pot of some sort. And so, but if you can get the idea, that's really important. Here's some other shots from drone footage. So you can see they're all different, very different. And just remember this one down on the bottom left, because I'll talk more about this little guy later in reference to an entanglement we had this year, or in 23. So this is some overhead video. This one we actually took from a carbon fiber pole and GoPro. That's train wreck. Train wreck it's all scarred up. He gets tangled up, but he usually throws the gear. And this is, underwater is really extremely important. And this one's got lots of gear, a lot of line around. And the problem with here, it's not like Hawaii when we do underwater stuff. There's so much bait and phytoplankton and stuff in the water. We've had a whale right next to the boat and you can't even see it. So it's harder to get some of the underwater, but we're able to get it. And then we'll take this and just make it, doesn't look really good for a video, but you can get a lot of the detail by processing and screenshots from that video. And this is overhead. And look, there you can see a line right in front of the dorsal fin, but we could not see those buoys from the surface. So on Blue Ocean Whale Watch, they had a drone operator that sent a drone up and they got that footage. So we could attach to that line that's trailing underwater, but we would have had to thrown a grapple, a heavier one, to let it drop so we could secure our working line to that so we could go up to work on the whale. So once we are able to put a working line on, we usually put a telemetry buoy on because if the wind comes in or something and we don't have time to attach, we want to have a telemetry buoy on it, and that's where we can track the whale. So it'll send a signal, like, see the lime green buoy? There, that cylinder above it? That lime green buoy, the cylinder above it, has a little antenna. In there is something called Argos. It's kind of like cell phones with iridium or whatever, but this is Argos, and it'll send a signal up to the satellite, and then we have a website we can see where the whale is. It's usually about an hour delayed, so, but it also, in that casing, has VHF, so we can get to the area where we saw it on Argos, where the animal was, position of the animal, and then we can use our VHF antenna to relocate it. And we don't normally put the orange polyballs. We only put those on when we're working to help slow the whale down, just like in Jaws, you know, where they put the barrels, yeah, and to slow the shark down. In fact, when we had our 19-foot Donzi, and I told somebody, I said, man, we need a bigger boat. That sounded like Jaws too. But we love our bigger boat, even though we do miss the Donzi because it was right low to the water and it was really a lot of fun. But when we're done, oftentimes we don't get it disentangled in one day. That's very rare. It can take up to 17 days from start to finish. But after we're done, if we can't work on it anymore that day due to, you know, dusk or weather, we'll cut those orange buoys off and just leave the telemetry on. So then once we've done all the assessment, we do an action plan. So then we go in and that's when we make the cut. And we have specialized knives. We have a lot of knives that are developed by Spyderco. We have this special whale rescue blade. It's very long and sharp, but it's all blunted on the other side so you can get under and cut without hurting the whale. This is a regular Spyderco blade that was adapted to this particular, and this is called a fixed knife. So it's going in so we can cut that line right there behind the dorsal. Behind the blowhole, excuse me. And it's very dangerous work. So, you know, we try to educate the public about this. And this guy is a very highly trained whale disentangler in Canada, a level 5. You have to be a level 5 to disentangle North Atlantic right whale. They're a different beast. They can actually fold in half, so they can put their fluke up by their head. Humpbacks can't do that. Yeah, first time I learned that, I went, whoa, that was amazing. But anyway, he had this is like the second North Atlantic right whale he had done in 2 weeks. And it kind of turned and threw its tail and pinned him against the side of the boat, which that was in Canada, but NOAA shut all of us down in the U.S. And we could not respond because they wanted to look at all the safety protocols, but then they opened it back up. But I just wanted to let you know, it is not for the faint of heart. And we never get in the water with the whales. This is when I was saying that down in Morro Bay, this is kind of like the line that was in that photograph that showed from the Center for Coastal Studies. He cut that line, and they thought they freed the whale, but that's not freeing the whale. All he did is aggravate that whale, cut the line, and it was still entangled. because it's kind of like this. So there, it's a lot more complicated underwater. So that's why our assessment is the number one step that we do. So this was our whale in April of 23, and it was entangled right outside of Moss Landing, not too far from where that mile marker buoy I pointed out with the little fishermen and the 2 whales doing the vertical lunge feed. And so we got the call. We were ready to respond, coming out, but the fishermen, and this is the same fisherman, when remember I said, see that little whale with the white polyball dragging around from its fluke area, from the peduncle, he had interfered with that particular entanglement years ago. Oh, sorry, I don't think I was ready. Sorry, I just talk with my hands. And anyway, so he cut it off. It would have been such an easy disentanglement had he just left it attached to his gear, but he didn't. And so one of the, it was Danny Frank from Whale Watch Captain, after this guy, who was a spot prowler out in Monterey Bay, cut it off of his gear, he got this drone footage. So he sent it, we got it right away. As soon as we got out there, we got it and we looked at it so we could see what we were dealing with. So now we need to get some more footage because it appeared like it was up by the mouth area, and we weren't sure if it went under the pec fin, but we weren't sure if it was wrapped around there. It might have been wrapped on the other side. But this whale, so first thing we did is attach the telemetry because we knew we didn't have a very long window of good weather. We were going to get blown out because it is the spring with the northwest winds. So we attached the telemetry buoy. And then, because it kept going in a circle, it actually went under our line, so we even shortened that line because of the behavior of the whale. So then we finally get up by the head, so it finally went straight. We finally are going to get some of the underwater footage. And the fisherman that cut it off comes back in. And usually when you have another boat come in, it changes their behavior. And he's like 70 yards from us. And he's trying to tell me what to do. And I'm like, I'm trying to get him to back off. So then I had to talk to him on the radio. And I was very nice because, I need to keep that good relations with all the fishermen. And he's trying to tell me, just cut the line by that buoy and it'll come out its mouth. And I said, it's more complicated than that. Because I really feel, because it went right by our boat Currency, which you can go down and tour. It's down in the California dock at the end of the wharf. Jack Bukowski was manning the boat, and he could see a downline from the whale, so we knew it had another pot. And I tried to tell him that, and he said, well, he cut his pot off, and I said, I understand that. I think it was entangled, then got entangled into his. So we were still dealing with a pot down below the whale. So he finally, I wasn't leaving because I knew he'd come up there and cut the line. So he finally backed off and went back to Monterey. So anyway, so now we can try to get the footage again, but the weather deteriorated, so we couldn't. So we just had to stand down. And it had a really long journey. Now, when you're looking at this is from the Argos, that on the telemetry, and these 2 big straight lines, don't pay attention to those. Sometimes there's an anomaly we get from this. Sometimes it shows it like went all the way to Japan, and we know that's not happening. So anyway, it started in Monterey and goes up by Half Moon Bay. So we took our boat from here to Moss Landing up to Half Moon Bay because it looked like there was going to be good weather. We wanted to be able to get to that whale and get the gear off. So went up to Half Moon Bay. We had a big meeting, stayed overnight, and then we were working with the Coast Guard and some of our other partners up in the Bay Area and our level 4. But the next morning when we got up, the whale had moved further offshore. It was so foggy. So we had to stand down. And the weather was not kind for us during this whole entanglement. So then it went up and then back all the way down to Morro Bay. But the weather was so crappy, there was no way we could respond down to Morro Bay or out of Morro Bay. Then it made its way back up to, see where the orange pin is, the one that says by Two Fingers Canyon? It went all the way up there. But there was something odd about it started just like drifting and we weren't sure, and it actually drifted all the way down to Morro Bay. So then we got all our equipment, we loaded it in our van and drove to Morro Bay. And the California Fish and Wildlife took us out because it was around 40 some miles offshore, and Morro Bay, the weather down there can turn in a second, and it's going to be very dangerous. So it was really nice. They're a great partner of our network too. So they took us out, and we found the buoy. In fact, Stephanie Marcos, our operations manager, is just a whiz on the VHF. So we found it, and this is what we found. In fact, our level 4 said, beware, you might find a dead whale attached because of the way the drift was. And we think this was on May 24th, we thought around May 13th or 14th, after the fact, that's when the buoy started drifting by itself, and now we know. Anyway, see, we have our line and our buoy and a carabiner. Now, had it pulled any of the gear or broke a line, there would have been some of that fishing gear. And I told Steph, I go, something's fishy. It's like someone unclipped it. But we weren't sure. So we send our Telonics in to get recharged. And just to show you, there's all our equipment, and we were going to use their inflatable, so we didn't have to bring our inflatable with us. And this is the crew that took us out. So in that, we went out on Bluefin. So I sent it in Telonics, and they wrote back on an email to go, how come you guys opened up your telemetry, the Telonics? We go, we never did that. We got it back. We've never opened it up. We send it to them, they recharge it, do whatever they need to do, and then we get it back. We never touch it. He goes, well, there's scratches on it, and you can tell that it was opened up because there was a little rust just on the inside where it's supposed to be sealed. So we believe that the fisherman, the same fisherman that cut it off that whale for this particular whale outside of Moss, also he's the fisherman that interfered with us in the Carmel Bay entanglement when we could have easily got that entangled, but they didn't like that it took us so long. So most of the fishermen are really good. It's like any other industry. You have a few bad apples. And so anyway, I'm pretty sure that he took that off up by the Two Fingers Canyon. And it's really a shame because he might have just cut that line, but it's still entangled, and we have not seen that whale since. So I just wanted to show you some trials and tribulations that we run into. It's not like we just run out there, cut, and we're done. There's so many levels to this, and it's very complex. But these are some of the detrimental effects that they can be caused if they're not freed. Like that one young calf that was with the white buoy and the line around the peduncle, they grow 4 inches a day, so that would just keep cinching and could eventually kill that calf. These are pictures from Mexico that someone took. David sent them to us. We just wanted something to show you how the nature of their body, how in the sea lice, the color of it, it's really not doing well at all. So these are some of the effects, and that's why it's such a slow and painful death that they endure, because they carry because I worked in Maui with the Hawaii Whale Research Foundation, we are part of the network there. They would bring those great big crab pots all the way down to Maui. And that takes the shortest distance time-wise that a whale has gone from Alaska to Maui was 32 days. But if they're dragging something, it's going to take them a lot longer. So they can endure a lot because they're big animals, but eventually it just deteriorates their body and their skin, and it's very detrimental. So that's just some more of the screenshots. You can see how it shredded the end of the fluke there. So anyway, I just wanted to show you some of the things that you could do to help save a whale. Is just that SOS whale. You can call that number, stay with the animal, but always maintain 100 yards, even if you're trying to take photos, because every time you go close to the whale, that means one less time we'll be able to approach to actually make cuts, because they get tired of boats approaching them after so long. And you can spread our marine mammal guide I think I left them out that front, but I'll have Steph get it. And if you want the Marine Mammal Guide, it's waterproof, and it shows illustrations of all the animals you can see all through the coast. So they're really nice to have. But these are things you could volunteer, host a fundraiser, set up a legacy gift, just all these different things that you could help with, and have me come talk with my hands. And so these are some of the things that we need. So you can always go to our website and see. And this is one that's really entangled there on the right. But that's the end. So does anyone have questions?
So if somebody spots an entanglement and notifies you, how do you find the whale initially?
Well, sometimes we don't, but usually we'll get a Latin long from them, and then if it's one of the whale watcher fishing boats, oftentimes they'll stand by, and even if they can't stand by as long, they have to go back in, one of the other ones will take over, which is very helpful. We do research out on the water, so we try to be out on the water as much as possible so that we're just like an ambulance driving around. We're already out there, and that saves time. We moved our offices up to Moss Landing so that we could be closer to the boat, because for the majority of the time running Marine Life Studies, I ran it out of my house. So we had to drive from Monterey up to Moss, but now we're up in Moss, so that eliminates some of the time. We get out there, we have a really good rapid response time, but sometimes we don't, especially, because they're traveling. They dive. They can dive for quite a while. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've been with them, and they've ditched us, like train wreck. It was a perfectly calm day, and we have no idea where it went. It was, they can go down and swim a long way. They can stay down for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. After 45 minutes one time in Hawaii, my director for our research team there said, "Okay, bag it, we're out of here," because we worked on competitive pods, not sleepy whales. Many, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but this last year, because of all the different things that happened, we didn't get to actually cut any whale free, but we attempted to. The weather was against us so many times that, to the point where we couldn't even get a telemetry buoy on. So, yeah, it is. And we responded a lot, too, this last year. You had a question? Yeah.
Stuff that happens down, close to LA and the Channel Islands, and then you have it here, and then you have up stuff, towards East Bay and stuff like that. So you have other
Right.
groups.
Right, there are, and because when we started, there wasn't anything north of Orange County, and there was only one place down in Southern Cal. Since then, there's down in San Diego, Long Beach, a couple other ones down in Southern California here, and up in San Francisco, and even up at Crescent City.
And then you had mentioned something also about some of the southern resident whales. Are you seeing a lot of problems with some of the whales that are traveling down that are having those kind of issues? Like, are you watching specific pods?
Well, I mean, we don't usually we've only seen the residents here I think they've only been seen here a total of 3 or 4 times, but, and there's a lot of open coast all along there. But when we brought our boat down from Bellingham, Washington, this was just outside of Coos Bay, and there was some killer whales that had never been ID'd before that we ID'd. But yeah, there's a lot of different people that are looking at that and studying that. And oftentimes, the whales aren't even getting entangled here. They come up from as far as Alaska, Washington, Oregon. Anyone else? Well, I thank you so much for all your time and patience.
Don't go anywhere. So Peggy, thank you for all your incredible work and for your presentation today on behalf of the sponsors and organizers of Whale Fest, a little
Thank
token of
you.
our appreciation.
Oh, I
Thank you
feel there's
so
a
much.
T-shirt in there, and I've been
Yes,
wanting one.
absolutely.
And thank you all, and be sure to get a marine mammal guide on your way out so that you can have to keep. And it's really nice, it's waterproof and cool figures.